Hi everyone and welcome back to Brush and Bubbles. If you are new to our channel, then welcome. We bring you new painting tutorials every week so you can get creative from the comfort of your own house with step-by-step instructions. I'm so excited about today's painting because it's a really relaxing, mindful one. We're going to get lost in our paintbrush strokes, and we're going to get lost in the shapes that we're creating. And it's just nice to sometimes switch off and zone out and get lost in your masterpieces. Today we're going to be painting an abstract scene with a plant on top. So it's almost a little bit like we're going to be doing the painting in the background with all of our shapes. You can do any shapes and any colours that you want. And then we're going to be drawing in a nice sort of plant-like shape using black paint. I absolutely love these paintings and they're quite trendy at the moment. You can see them in lots of shops and they make perfect paintings for your homes. So before we get started, I'm going to talk you through what you'll need to create this painting at home. As always, just start by covering up your table with some tablecloth, old newspaper or an old towel. You'll need a canvas, any size canvas that you like. You'll need a couple of different size paintbrushes. I have a bigger shape brush and then a smaller pointy brush. You'll then need some kitchen towel, a glass or a pot of water, palettes to pop all of your paints in, and last but not least, your acrylic paints. Once we get started, I'll be showing you which paint colours I'm using, and I'll also be showing you how I'm mixing them up. I'm going to go for more earthy-like tones with my painting, but like I mentioned, you can use any shades and colours that you want. You might want to go a little bit more vibrant with your painting, and that's totally okay too. If you would prefer to draw your plant on rather than paint it on, you can just have a black marker pen on standby just in case you feel more comfortable with drawing it rather than using your paint and your paintbrush. So just take a moment to set yourself up, make sure you're comfortable and you're relaxed. You can pop on some nice calming music, even an audio book. You don't have to listen to me while I'm teaching you. You can just sort of follow along visually if you want to. And I'm excited to paint this all together. So without further ado, let's jump straight into our painting. In the paint palette, I have black, white, pink, magenta, yellow and blue paint. To start with, what we want to do is we just want to mix up some of our shades. And because I'm going to go for more of an earthy tone with my painting, I just want to start by mixing up a little batch of grey paint, just so that I can mix that in with my colours, just to mute down the tone slightly. So I'm just going to pick up one of my brushes and I'm just going to scoop quite a few dollops of this white paint. I'm just moving over to a different dish in my palette. And then to this white, I'm just going to add a little bit of black and give it a really good mix to make a light grey shade. Once you've got your light grey shade, we can now start by mixing up our first colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scoop some of this pink and move it over to a different dish. And then I'm going to add some of my grey to it and give it a really good mix and just see what kind of colour I come out with. So I'm getting a nice sort of dusty rose colour here, which I love. It's actually one of my favourite colours. But I'm just going to go a little bit further and add some more of my grey paint into the mixture. So I'm pretty happy with my shade here, and I'm just going to add a drop of water to it just to allow the paint to become more fluid when we paint with it, so it doesn't dry too quickly while we're still working with it. So this is the fun bit, because we're now going to apply our first colour to our canvas. So it's up to you what patterns you want to go for, what shapes you want to go for. I would say don't overthink it, just be quite free with what you're doing. Just almost let your mind drift off and let your hand do the work. If you want to, you can completely follow along with what I'm doing, just so you don't have to think about it too much. I always think it's quite relaxing when you get to just sort of not overthink something. So I'm going to start by doing a sort of blob-like shape, maybe coming off this top left-hand side of my canvas. And then, like always, if you've watched any of our other tutorials, I always like to paint the top and the sides, whatever we're doing on the front. I think it's nice to wrap around the other sides of your canvas, just so that when it goes on the wall, it feels nice and finished. So I'm just going to fill in this whole area here with that same colour. If you like this shade, you can actually use it to create another shape on your canvas. So what I might do is I might actually just do a sort of squiggly line, maybe on this bottom right hand side of my canvas. So I'm just pushing the bristles down with my brush and dragging it along, and then picking up more paint as soon as I feel like I need it. I'm now going to switch up and move over to making a different colour. So I'm just going to wash my brush really well in the water and give it a dry on your kitchen towel. The next colour I think I'm going to go for is an earthy tone of yellow. So this is a really bright pigmented shade of yellow. So what I'm going to do is lighten it slightly to start with. So I'm just going to pick up some of the yellow, move it over to a different dish. And then I'm going to add quite a lot of white to it before I go ahead and add the grey, just to lighten it up. And as soon as you're happy, if you are also going for more muted tones, just pick up some more of your grey and add it in and give it a good mix. So I think I'm happy with that colour. So now I'm going to move back over to my canvas. I think I'm just going to do another splodge with this, maybe coming off the side of the right hand side of the canvas. And again, you can be free with this. You don't have to overthink it. You might want to do more of a sort of square shape or a round shape. It's totally up to you. And then once you're happy with your shape, you can then just go ahead and fill it in again. I might also use this same colour to do another shape down here, and I might actually make this shape look slightly like a leaf, an abstract leaf. So it's almost a bit like a lemon shape. And once you're happy with the shape, you can go ahead and fill it in again. So I think I'm going to move on to making my other colour now, because we can always go back if we want to and pick up some of the shades we've already used if we want to add more. So again, I'm just going to give my brush a really good wash before I go ahead and make that shade. For my next shade, I'm going to make a lighter shade of blue, but because I've contaminated all of my white paint with yellow, I'm just going to add a little bit more white paint to my palette. So if you need to do the same, then you can do that now. So again, picking up some of this white and just moving it back over to a different dish. I want to start with quite a lot of white because I want my blue shade to be very light in shade. And then I'm going to add a little bit of blue to this and give it a good mix. And then to this light blue, again, I'm just going to pick up some of my grey and mix that in. As soon as you're happy with the shade, we can now move back over to our canvas and create some more shapes. So I might actually do another leaf shape here in this gap. So again, it's just that sort of very rough lemon shape. And don't worry if you start to meet some of your other shapes. As long as they're dry, you can overlap them. So if you wanted to speed up your drying process, you can just use a hairdryer. I might actually use this colour and do another line underneath this one, maybe coming off at a slightly different angle. And then with this same shade, I think I'm going to add another sort of leaf-like shape up here, and I might even overlap it with this yellow that I've got. Again, it's actually quite nice if you're abstract with your leaves and not too precise. You can even make them a little bit more sort of squared off in a way. At this point you can sort of see through some of your paint, and if you don't want to see through your paint, then don't worry, because once it dries we can just do another layer of the colour. You might actually like seeing some of the shapes coming through, so I can see a little bit of that that yellow splodge underneath this leaf shape, but I think I quite like it, so I might leave it I'm going to move on to creating a new colour now. So again, just give your brush a really good wash in your water again. So I'd quite like to make a sort of orange shade for the next colour that I want to go for. So I'm just going to start again just with some white as my base, and then I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of pink to it, and then a tiny little bit of yellow, and I'm going to give that a good mix. So I've got a kind of nude peach shade here. So to this, I just want to earth it up a little bit. So I'm just going to pick up some more of my grey, and then I'm going to mix that into it. I'm now just going to take this sort of nude grey shade and add a few more shapes to my canvas. So I think I might add a sort of splodge down here, coming off the bottom corner. And I think I'm also going to add another leaf-like shape over here. Then might take a little bit more of it and just do a little sort of a tiny splodge or dot in the corner, just a little mark. So for my final shade, I think I want to go for a really, really light earthy pink. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up some of this yellow. I mean this white, and I don't mind that it's got a little bit of yellow in it just because I'm going to be mixing it all together. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of pink to it and give it a really good mix. So I actually really like this shade. It's just a sort of very light peach colour. So I don't think I'm going to add any of the grey to it just because I quite like the shade how it is. And I love that this is part of painting, that you can just create different colours and shades, and if you're happy, sometimes you make colours by accident and you really like them. So I always feel like having an experiment is a good thing. And if ever you don't like a colour on your palette, it doesn't matter, leave it, move on to another colour, start again. You don't have to use the shade that you've made if you don't like it. So with this pinky shade, I'm just going to add a few more last finishing shapes. So I think I might add another leaf-like shape up here, and I'll overlap it with this yellow again. And as a last touch, I might just pick up some of this same shade and almost just do a line sort of going down all the way to the bottom, in between all these leaves, just to sort of suggest maybe a stalk of the leaf. And remember, this is all going to be background because we're now going to paint over the top of all of this with our black paint. Then to finish this off, I think I'm just going to pick up some of the same colour and do another little dot splodge over here. So I think I'm happy with how this is looking. What I would say is just take a little step back from your painting, decide if you're happy, if you want to add more shapes. If you want to add another layer of paint over some of these shades, then just give your canvas a little dry. Either just leave it for 5 or 10 minutes to dry naturally in the air, or like I mentioned before, you can use a hairdryer. So just have a little look at yours and decide what you want to do. And if you want to give it another coat of paint, then you can. And if not, we're just going to leave it to dry for about 5 minutes before we move on to the next stage. As soon as your painting is nice and dry, we're going to move on to painting in our leaf or our plant. So what I would say is, this is your chance to decide if you'd like to do this with a paintbrush and black paint, or if you would rather do it with a felt tip. You can do anything that you like, whatever you feel more comfortable with. There is no wrong or right way, and you're not cheating. I would say though, if you are getting into your painting, it is always nice to challenge yourself, because the more you use your paintbrush and the paint, the sort of easier it becomes in a way. So I'm going to stick with the paint and the paintbrush, and I'll be showing you how to do that, but you just pick your medium of choice. Whatever you want for your painting will work. Going to be using one of my smaller paintbrushes, and I'm just going to use some pure black paint. So to the black, what we want to do is we want to add a few drops of water to it. I would say 3, 4, 5 drops. It always feels like it's quite a lot, but what we're going to do is really mix it up like this.
Essentially what we're doing here is just making our paint more of an inky consistency, just so that when we come to drawing it on our canvas, we get a nice crisp line. It's almost easier to draw with when it isn't too thick. So if ever you feel like your paint is getting a bit dry and sticky, just add that water back in and give it a good mix. So I know that this is scary because we're going in with black paint, but you don't have to worry about it too much because we are going abstract, so anything goes really. Essentially, all we're going to do is draw, and I'll show you here on my palette first, a sort of stem. It can be any shape that you want. And then from that stem, we'll just be adding in leaves. And again, they are a lemon-like shape. They start smaller and narrower as you meet the stem. And then they sort of curve out to a point, and then start back there, curve round to meet that point. So if you want to, you can give this a practice on a piece of paper or card or anything you want. Just sort of get the sense of how you want to do your leaves. You have bigger ones, smaller ones. And then as soon as you're happy, you can move over to your painting, and it's going to look nice and abstract over the top of the shapes that we've already done. And then if you want to afterwards, we can always go in and add some more detail, so you can be really careful and add sort of extra lines within your leaves just to add an extra touch in there. So this is your chance to make your painting really, really unique. So I have added these sort of very rough leaf-like shapes and stem-like shape within my background, but I'm going to ignore it for now because I don't want to do my leaf straight over the top. It's quite nice if it's sort of off-center a little bit. So sort of ignore everything that you've already done, basically. So I'm just picking up my black paint. And because my canvas is nice and dry, I can actually rest my hand on it, which is quite helpful. And I'm just going to touch the very, very tip of my paintbrush onto the canvas. I'm just going to start very carefully dragging it down. I'm going to stop as soon as I need to add more paint. Add more paint, and then I'm going to go back over that last section. And then carry on sort of creating the shape for your stem. And this can be as straight or as wobbly or as big or as small, thick and as wide as you like. Okay, well done everyone. We have done the first part of our plant. So remember to breathe, because this is the stage where I always forget to breathe because I get so into what I'm doing. So breathing is very important. Remember to breathe, everyone. I'm just picking up some more of my black paint and I'm going to start with my first leaf. Now, it's total personal preference where you decide to start. I like to start at the top and then work my way down, but you might prefer to start at the bottom. It's totally up to you. So I'm just going to create my first leaf coming off the very top of my stem. So again, I'm just sticking with that shape going out. And I'm really, really only pushing the very top of my paintbrush onto the canvas. And I'm going to curve it around. And bring it back in to meet the top. And as you can see, I'm going really slowly here, and I keep lifting off my paintbrush anytime I need to add more paint to it. So I'm just going to leave my leaves like this for now, and I'm going to add them all the way down my stem, and then afterwards I might go back in and add a few more details. So you can just spend some time now adding in all of the leaves that you like to your stem. As soon as you've got your shape and all of your leaves in there, this is your chance to just take a little step away. Go and look at something else, look at the ceiling, look at the floor, look at something else, and then come back and have a look at your painting, because you might actually be happy with it exactly how it is, and you might not want to add anything else, and that is absolutely totally fine. If you do want to add the other element that I showed you over on my palette before, which is just a few more details within the leaves, I'm just going to show you how to do that now. So again, we just want to use the black paint, nice and watered down. If you need to add another drop of water to your mixture, just do that now. And as a way of preparing your brush, what I like to do personally is just sort of dash off any excess paint. You can even give your handle of your brush a little twizzle and drag it along, and it just brings your brush to a nice point so that you can really control the thin lines that you're making. And I would always give this a practice. As you can see, I'm almost resting my pinky down, so I've got a little bit more control and my hand doesn't shake, but you can really make nice thin lines if you just push the very end of your bristles down and you've prepared your brush. So I'm now going to move over to my canvas and do exactly this. So I'm just going to start by drawing in a few very, very thin lines, just like I did on my palette, within these leaf shapes. So again, just pushing down really lightly. Just adding more paint to your brush as and when you need it. Just start doing sort of wobbly lines within your leaves, and they don't need to be neat, they don't have to be precise, you don't have to do the same thing on each leaf. We want them to look nice and natural. I'm just adding more water to my black because I don't think it's runny enough. It's a fine line, we don't want it completely dripping, but we do want it nice and inky in consistency. It just helps us make these nice thin lines. So if you want to, have a little practice on a spare bit of paper before you do this, and just decide if it's something you want to do. And then you can go ahead and start adding in these shapes to your leaves on your canvas. So I'm sort of sticking with the same idea of just bringing it from that point in the middle of the leaf where it meets the stem. And I'm sort of just swerving them around, having a few of them coming off each other. Again, remember, we're being really abstract with this, so any of the lines that you want to do kind of work. And as soon as you're happy with the technique, you can just carry on and do this on all of your leaves, or you might even not want to do it on all of your leaves. You might want to leave a few blank. What I would suggest doing is picking a few that you want to do it on. I might do it on here, maybe this one, leaving the others, and then seeing if I want to add to them afterwards. So I do like it how it's looking now with the blank leaves, but I think I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest as well. As a last touch, I might just add a little dot of black paint, maybe down here in the corner. Also might just add a little curve around some of this blob as well. I might do the same to the one that I've got up here. And I might just do a little sort of line, ziggy line or squiggly line just up here. Just find that it sort of ties everything in nicely.
As soon as you've finished adding in all of the details that you want to your painting and it's nice and dry, you have then completed your abstract plant masterpiece. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you did, then don't forget to give us a little thumbs up. I also hope you're feeling a little bit more relaxed and unwound. I do find painting can be extremely therapeutic and relaxing, so I do hope that you're all feeling a little bit more zen. And if you want to check out any of our other painting tutorials, I'll just pop a link above which will take you to a whole gallery of our other videos. Thanks so much for watching everyone, and I really look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye!